Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Straight Talk 2020. Um, I'm your host, Clifford Benjamin. I'm from the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church. Um, Coming out of our live stream yesterday, we decided that we came together with this quick program that would allow us to speak to some of our members on the whole topic of COVID-19. We have a very interesting afternoon planned for you, and as we get into it, um, please bear with us. My co-host this afternoon will be Nigel Ward from the uh, Breath of Life Seventh-day Adventist Church. She's going to join us shortly. In the meanwhile, I will introduce our panelists for this afternoon. Um, so yeah, so we have with us. Give me 1 second. Professor Pedro L.V. Welch, retired Deputy Principal of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. He's also Professor of Social and Medical History in the Department of History and Philosophy. Former Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education, and is an elder and organist at the Breath of Life uh, Seventh-day Adventist Church. Good afternoon, Elder Welch. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. Sure, you're just about to introduce Sister Prevost, so I'll just wait while you introduce her, and then I'll come back in again.
Okay. Also, our second panelist for this afternoon would be Sister Priscilla Prevost, and she is serving as the health coordinator for the fourth consecutive term with the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And she's joining us from Dominica. She is a family nurse practitioner and holds a master's in public health from the University of Liverpool, and recently completed a postgraduate certificate in product project management with the same university. She is a champion for a healthy lifestyle, loves the Lord, and deserves all God's children to enjoy abundant health as the Lord will have it. A mouthful, quite a mouthful. Hey, good afternoon, Sister Prevo.
You mean
Can you?
Good afternoon, Nigel, and good afternoon to all your listeners. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
There you go. Well, we should have a very exciting um, afternoon. I should mention that they're joining us via WebEx virtually because we are currently under lockdown. And you'll get more information on that as we go forward. Um, so, where do we start? Sister Prevo, let's start with you. Tell us what's the situation like in Dominica? Can you just double check your microphone for me,
you know what?
please? Uh, You can leave it unmuted. Unmuted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Hello?
can. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yes, in Dominica, from towards the end of February, we were preparing for COVID-19. We heard that it was in China and it had started moving around across the globe. And we were in preparatory mode. But on the 21st of March, when our first case was announced, we continued preparatory mode. However, we moved into response mode. And from that time on, we've been managing aggressively We have 14 cases presently, and the first 2 cases we had were imported cases, and from that, based on contact tracing, we're able to trace and to identify the number of persons. So we had 9 persons from one contact gave us 11, and then we had another case, and then two from contacts from one of the last case we had. So we are now at 14. So presently, we are on partial lockdown. Well, we have complete 24-hour curfew for the weekend. That was for last weekend, as well as this weekend. And during the week, there is a partial curfew. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I will allow Elder Welch now this opportunity to give us from his perspective what's happening here in Barbados. Elder Welch?
Thank you very much. I think we all know that over the last 2 months or so, in fact, probably more as far back as the middle of January or so, there has been a very heightened concern across the world concerning this new virus. As you're probably aware, there are other coronaviruses. So this particular one, COVID-19, is in some respects similar to some other coronaviruses, but it has its own unique characteristics. That is what is creating some of the problem. And in that context, the bodies, most people have not encountered before, people have not been able to develop an immunity to this virus. In Barbados, we began to observe the growth in numbers. First, we began with a couple of cases. Then it took about a week or so before we heard that you were up to 6. And then since that time, now we've grown past 50. I think the last numbers that I heard would be 51 plus. And I think I did hear on the radio that there might have been at least one death, an 81-year-old male. Following the increase in the numbers, of course, what has happened is that the government of Barbados, at first, there was more or less a limited shutdown, but then as matters began to expand very rapidly, decided to put us on full lockdown. And that full lockdown came really with effect from Saturday evening. So when this lockdown is from Saturday, that is the 28th of March, right down until April the 14th. So we are now under 24-hour lockdown. And I think many Barbadians are still not entirely sure what happens after the first 24 hours. I assume that the government will continue to look at the figures, and if it appears that there's an acceleration, then we may be in for some tighter control of our movement. That's where we are at this particular point.
Okay, great. So for our audience listening, you can also drop us your comments via WhatsApp. You can use the number below. Remember, if you're not messaging from Barbados, the area code is 246-548-0773. You can use that number and WhatsApp in your questions for either Sister Prevost or Elder Welch as the program continues. With that said, let's get right to it. I'll just ask a quick question that we can open with. But before
you continue, is there a number or a site that persons can come on? Because I'm getting some messages that they are not able to get on.
So we're working on that currently. The link seems to be giving some trouble at this time.
Okay.
A new stream link will pop out shortly for those
Okay.
to join. In the meanwhile,
When you get it, please send it to me so that I can forward it.
sure, no problem. Okay, let me just pop it. Dr. Sorry, Elder Welch, is there any questions or anything like that you have for Sister Prevost at this time before we get into the meat?
I certainly wish to speak at length with Sister Prevost, but before we get to that point, let me just also add a bit of historical perspective to this issue. We have not had invite back through the Caribbean like this for some time. However, that is not to say that historically we have not had some very serious health challenges. As far as there was a cholera epidemic in Barbados that killed about 20,000 persons, about 13% of the Barbados population. And at that time, the government of Barbados began to introduce into the law certain quarantine regulations. We might wish to see them as a precursor of the current lockdown. You had a series of laws that were passed, which both sought to limit the contact of the public with those who were ill, and also prevent persons from coming in to Barbados space with the disease. So you had a quarantine was developed, and then subsequent to that, that was in the 1850s, in fact, into the 1870s, you had a recurrence of the cholera epidemic. But then, as we move into the 20th century, around 1918, there was a huge flu pandemic that swept across the earth, and the estimates for those who died in that flu pandemic were ranged from about 35 million to 100 million. So it's a real historical event, and Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean, Dominica, other countries within the Caribbean also suffered extensively from that flu epidemic. Just shortly before that, 1905, there was a smallpox epidemic in Barbados, and that is where the government began to really introduce serious regulations. And then again, in addition to all of this, we have experienced in our history yellow fever epidemics. And we don't have that now because, of course, they managed to control the mosquito, which was the vector that caused the yellow fever epidemic. But the yellow fever epidemic killed thousands of, particularly British soldiers, although some locals also died. I have been working over the last 15 years on a 1,000-page series of reports on British military doctors in the Caribbean who dealt with it's some time to complete it. I've already done most of the writing, but it's still going to take some more time. But it is remarkable what happened to people. A ship would arrive in Barbados, and within 2 or 3 days, half the ship's complement will be dead. That is how serious the thing was. So while we are here, very worried, and we should be worried about COVID-19, we must also understand that historically, from time to time, our people are faced with health challenges which similar. I just will stop there for a moment, and then we continue the discussion.
Okay, Sister Prevost, what about Dominica? Can you share a brief history as well? Is it similar?
I would not be able to fit in Brother Welch's shoe as the historical perspective is concerned. Brother Welch is a historian in his own rights. However, having been in public health in Dominica for over 40 years, I recall we had issues with typhoid. Typhoid was endemic in Dominica. And we had, even in my district where I worked, the St. Joseph district, we had outbreak of typhoid. And I recall one of the actions that really helped to curb that problem was the contact tracing, which is what we are doing now with COVID-19. We had two carriers, typhoid carriers, and once we were able to identify those carriers and actually treat them and to treat those persons with typhoid, we were able to see a significant reduction. We also had a similar problem with gonorrhea. And we had an outbreak in the district with gonorrhea, and we were able to trace it to two particular people. They were females, and when we were able to trace those individuals who were coming in with gonorrhea and to get that contact and treat that person along with a lot of education, then we were able to deal with that situation. So we see public health playing a significant role as far as communicable disease or even non-communicable disease is concerned. And oftentimes may focus on the treatment part of it, where persons have to be hospitalized, but it starts really to really get to the root of the problem. It needs a good public health system, in fact, primary health care, where you really hit the ground because, we have what is called in public health, you have the upstream and the downstream approach. And if you continue to focus on the downstream when the people get sick, then, and you do not identify the cause of the disease and tackle it at the cause or at the root of it, then you are just, going in circles. However, when both the upstream and the downstream can work together, then you are able to arrest the situation. And I think that is the approach that is being used now. Well, I know for sure here in Dominica, we have the primary healthcare system, and it is the health team on the ground that have been able to identify the contacts and really identify them very, very, very early before they are able to spread to other areas. And I think that approach can certainly, along with our individual as well as our corporate responsibility. So one of the approach is all of society approach to deal with those situations.
Oh, thank you very much for that insight. So let's get into it. Our topic this afternoon is COVID-19, the lockdown, and the fate of the saints. Yeah, we want to know really how COVID itself is affecting Christians in a whole, and at the end of this program, we'll be able to identify some of the pros and some of the cons of the whole situation, and how we could work around with the laws that were implemented and stuff like that. Because one of the major impacts we had was not being able to congregate as we usually would in order to worship, right? But it also forces us to look at other ways and other means. It kind of push us forward in that perspective from a technological standpoint.
Okay, if I should start here, um, first of all, we have to understand how the virus, coronavirus, is spread and how it is transmitted. And we know that it is spread through droplets, and when a person cough or a person sneeze, or even in speaking, and the droplets would spread around. It may drop on surfaces, so a person who either coughed in their hand or hold on to something, and the droplet is there, then the person can get it. Now, it means that persons who are in close contact with each other, touching, talking close to each other, the infection, the virus can be spread in that way. And if we understand how the virus is being spread, then we can understand the reason for the lockdown. If everybody would understand and would take the necessary precautions and follow the guidance that is given, then probably would not have need law enforcement to tell us to do that. But since man is have difficulties sometimes controlling their own behavior, controlling themselves, that's why God Himself have laws, and the nation have laws to protect the people, because man, you have to protect man against himself. Otherwise, he'll just destroy himself. And this is what we are seeing. So the government had to put legislation in place to help us to maintain that social distancing. And not only that, to help to be able to trace the contacts, because this is where the problem really, well, like if you are not able to get the contacts of the individuals who have been tested positive and to get them early, then they will be out there and they will be spreading the virus. And you have more persons getting infected, getting sick. And while a lot of the people who get infected, they get better, they recover, but of course some die. And we know that those who die are the most vulnerable ones. And the fact that we have a lot of people in our country, in our countries, with non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, these people are the most vulnerable, and they are likely to succumb to the disease and die as a result. But as opposed to people who are quote unquote healthy. And so we have to protect the vulnerable and protect ourselves as well. So there is um, reasonable reason for the lockdown. And of course, we also, in this whole COVID-19, we have had or we have heard of experiences where the virus have spread among church. Because in church, we shake hands, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we shake hands, we use the mic. There has not been any sanitizing of mics. We did not know about sanitizing the mic before another person used the mic. We hug, we shake. In church, it's fellowship as well as worship. And you can imagine that if one person comes in church with the virus, how easily it can be spread. And the same goes to other gatherings, like partying, and you know and moving around, especially in bars. And this is why legislation now is made for alcohol. So in Dominica, they have suspended liquor licenses, because alcohol um, numbs or destroys or damages the judgment of individuals. And under the influence of alcohol, people do things that they would not normally do and under normal circumstances. So legislating the whole question of alcohol is also a step in helping people to regulate their behaviors.
Okay. Elder Welch, you.
I, that was a yes. I heard what Sister Prevost said just now, and certainly there's a lot of important information which has just been relayed to us. I'm just going back to your original question, though concerning the impact of this COVID-19 on our faith, etc. I would first wish to make the point that Christians are not immune to concern and anxiety. That is why the scriptures often remind us that we need to cast all our cares upon Jesus. That's why the scriptures often remind us of our need to have faith. Then it says we look for it impossible to please God. So that to the COVID-19 pandemic rather would tend to challenge the extent to which we are grounded in the faith or not. I said we're not immune. If you recall, if you're old enough, I hope you are old enough to remember, when we moved from the 20th century and the first century, at that moment, at the time, there were all kinds of discussions going on about the implications of moving into the 21st century. There's some Seventh-day Adventists at the time who began to come with some very strange interpretations of what was happening at that when we moved into the 21st century. The notion there was some began to do some kind of mathematical calculation like this. You had 2,000 years before the flood, then another 2,000 years to the coming of Jesus, and then another 2,000 years. And people began to come with all kinds of predictions. Although as a church, we have been warned time and time again to be very aware of the problem of date setting. So I would not be surprised if at a time like this, some of our members who see this event begin to attempt to place on it a biblical perspective and come to some conclusion that has sent COVID to do something. Now, I'm not suggesting that God is not, since God is in charge of everything, I'm not saying that God is caught unawares by this, but I'm not saying that we just need to be careful to go to the scriptures themselves. Jesus himself speaking in the book of Matthew chapter 20 made it abundantly clear that as we come to near the end, there are a lot of things that are going to happen. And in Matthew 24, he said that there will be wars and rumors of wars. He says, see that you be not troubled. All these things must come to pass. End is not yet. Then he goes on to say, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences, which is another way of saying diseases, and earthquakes in diverse places. So it appears that Jesus is, that when we see these things, yes, surely, as Christians of faith, we ought to recognize that and that these things will happen, and that they will happen in part because this earth is a conflict, there's a controversy between the evil one and our Heavenly Father. And before that controversy ends with the final victory when Satan himself will be destroyed, these events will take place. Before I go any further, however, let me also make the point that there are some persons who go also misinterpret the actions of the government. As Sister Prevost was just saying, there are problems of contact and contact with people who have been afflicted. And then there's some persons who would attempt to weave into the government to lock down the countries some kind of anti-church sentiment. We have to be careful with that as well too, because the question of locking down or what you call quarantining is not new. In the scriptures, reading to Leviticus chapter 13, it talks about people being unclean, living alone. Leviticus 13:46, for example. One version says he shall remain unclean all the days during which he has the infection. He is unclean. He shall live alone. He's outside the camp. I mean, if that is a lockdown, I don't know what it is. there's another text, Leviticus 14:8, which is similar. Numbers 5:2 also speaks about it. And then when we read about in Luke chapter 17:12 about the lepers who came approached Jesus, says that they stood at a distance because there was an understanding that you needed to quarantine people to protect the others. And if we accept that as Christians of faith, that one of our functions is to look out for our brothers and sisters. One of ours is to love even our enemies. Then we have a responsibility. And I would think that what this COVID-19 should, in fact, should do for us is to strengthen our faith and strengthen our sensitivity. And we should therefore not think that we should challenge any government on the question lockdown, unless, of course, the lockdown morphs into something sinister. Until that happens, I think we just need to accept it as one of the things that must happen. I'll stop there because I think I said quite a lot here at the time.
Yeah. So our
Okay, I just want to support the point that brother Welch is making in terms of there are some of our members, some Christians, not only from our faith, it could be from other faiths as well, who may read into this as persecution, but we will only get into persecution when we resist the laws of the country. And in this instance, this is a time when not only the church is being prevented from gathering, but it is all gatherings. And I'm glad that you brought up the verses with regards to the distancing. It happened with leprosy back then in the scripture, and even in Isaiah 26 and verse 20, uh, God gave Israel special guidance, and He said, "Come, my people, enter into your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment until the indignation be overpassed." So, if we see what is happening right now, that is exactly what the government is telling us to do. Go into your house, close yourself, stay indoors, until because of course, if we do that, we will flatten the curve. We will also help to prevent the further spread of that virus. And we must not only think about ourselves, we need to think about the healthcare professionals who are taking care of these individuals. They are risking their own lives. Yes, they have their PPE that they take to protect them, but they are at great risk. And the more patients they have is the more they will be overburdened, and their immune system can be compromised and cause them to contract the infection. So when we do that, when we follow the guidelines and we stay indoors, we stay in, we quarantine or isolate, then we are able to contain the infection. We're able to treat those that are infected. And the treatment is not even necessarily drugs, because some people who have a mild form of the disease may not need any drugs. God have made our bodies in such a way that the body is able to heal itself from through the immune system, but it needs to be placed in the right conditions in order for healing to take place. Eventually, the virus would disintegrate, would disappear. But what happens is we have to be able to take the guidelines, do the hand washing and the breathing or the respiratory etiquette, and practice those things, and the social distancing, which is actually why we are in quarantine, while we are in lockdown. It is all in the reason to help to contain this and prevent it from getting to the stage that you mentioned, Brother Welch, when so many thousands of patients died from that infection way back then. So, I mean, with the systems that we have in place right now, we are in a better position to manage. However, if as human beings, whether Christians or non-Christians, we do not follow the counsel that is given, then we ourselves will be at, at great risk. We are putting ourselves and we are putting others at risk itself. What we can do, which is what is happening right now, is to determine other means whereby we can still worship, because we have to understand that the church is not the building. We worship in a building, but it is the body of believers that form the church. And if our faith is strong, what we have seen is that probably new methods, new modes of communicating the message is being developed, is being identified, and we are able to do even what we were not able to do before. So it is a matter of um, realigning and relooking at why we are here and what we are supposed to be doing here while we wait for the soon return of Jesus.
All right. I would like to take this opportunity before we go any further to introduce Nigel Ward from Breath of Life. Nigel, welcome.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Nigel.
Welcome.
I would like to say a special welcome and thank you to our panelists for joining Mr. Benjamin and myself as we seek to bring this program to the North Central District. We know that many of our members are under duress at this point, but as a church, we still need to be able to fellowship one with another. And I want to, for those individuals who are online right now, I understand there are 72 or more individuals online at this time. I would like to welcome you. I want to welcome members from Breath of Life, members from some members from Grozette, members from Jackson SDA, members from the Ebenezer Church. I want to welcome our brothers and sisters from Dominica who are also logged on. And one or two individuals who are non-Adventists, I want to welcome you as well. Welcome to Straight Talk 2020. Sorry for being late. Had some technical problems with my device, but I'm on now, thank God. Again, let me just introduce the panelists to those who came on late. We're speaking with one of our panelists, Sister Priscilla Prevost from Dominica. She's serving the East Caribbean Conference of Health. She's a coordinator for the 4th consecutive term, along with an associate from ADRA. She's a family nurse practitioner and holds a master's in public health from the University of Liverpool. And she has recently completed a postgrad certificate in project management with the same university. Welcome, sister. I understand that you're a champion for a healthy lifestyle. You're no stranger to Barbados, and we are happy to have you with us one more time as we battle COVID-19. We also have with us Professor Pedro Welch. Professor Pedro L.V. Welch. He's a retired deputy principal of the University of Cape Hill campus. He was a professor of social and medical history in the Department of History and Philosophy. He's also the former dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education. Elder, welcome to Straight Talk 2020.
Thank you.
Yes. At this point, I would like to ask Mr. Welch, Sister Prevost, a question. Sister Prevost, we know that Dominica is struggling just like us and other countries throughout the world. Dominica don't have as many cases as Barbados, but you still have to put the same procedures in place. We know that this situation has many of the brethren feeling uneasy. And even though we understand that there is no cure for COVID-19, what are some of the things that we can do to probably help to boost our immune system to the best possible way we can so that we can say, well, I've done all I can do?
Okay, well, we have been talking about boosting the immune system long before COVID-19. And as the health department, we have been stressing the 8 doctors, we call it 8 natural doctors, and they are placed in different acronyms. We have the most popular one, the New Start. We have creation, we have celebrations, and others. But New Start is as I said, the most popular one, and it's easy to remember because it's New Start. It was first designed by Wimmer Institute and have really gone all over the world. And the new, which is N, stands for nutrition. Nutrition is eating the right foods, eating them in the right quantity, eating them at the right timing. And we know fruits and vegetables are very high in antioxidants and phytochemicals, which helps us to fight against infections and other diseases. So our fruits, our vegetables, we need to eat 5 to 10 servings every day in order to help to boost our immune system. Also, vitamin E, which we get from nuts and seeds, is also an antioxidant. We also need to have adequate amount of carbohydrate and adequate amount of protein in our diet. If our diet is deficient of protein and carbohydrate, then that too will compromise our immune system. So our diet, in addition to having fresh fruits and vegetables on a daily basis, the balance between the amount of carbohydrate and the amount of protein is also very important. We also look at the E, which refers to exercise, that we need to exercise regularly. And even I listened to the address this morning from the Minister of Health, the press release, and they were encouraging exercise, but exercise within the curtilage, as we say, within your environment, within your yard, indoors or outdoors within your space, your own space. And that should continue even with the lockdown. So we need exercise on a daily basis. And we said you could do 10 to 15 minutes 3 times a day instead of a whole straight hour. And that is easy. You can get outside, do some gardening within your yard. You can do some cleaning, and that will help you rather than just sitting down and pining and whining that you are not able to get out and do the usual thing that you're accustomed of doing. We also have the W for water. During this time, we need to hydrate ourselves properly. And this is something that we should be doing all the time. So we need 6 to 8, but because most people are overweight or obese, we say 8 to 10, or half of your weight in ounces of water, and that is what we are recommending. We also have S for sunlight, that we need to have. Sunlight provides vitamin D, and vitamin D helps to boost the immune system. So we can get out there and have some sun between 10 and 3 o'clock. Let's get some sunlight. And I said between between 9 and 3. Then we also have the air, temperance, the T for temperance, that we know temperance is the total abstinence of the things that are harmful and the moderate use of the things that are useful or that are good. And this is where, as a church, we have been promoting the abstinence from alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, cocaine, crack, and all these things, which acts to deplete our immune system, weaken our moral senses, sensibilities, and therefore at this time, even now, we are being supported by the government saying now you should, they are now banning liquor license because they recognize the threats and the dangers there. So that also things like sugars while we use sugar, but then the abuse, which we have been abusing sugar, sugar depletes the immune system. So in order to prevent that or to boost our immune system, we need to cut back on the amount of sugar drinks that we use, these sugar sweetened beverages, and all these we can cut back on. We also need to, when we think about air, right? Air, we should breathe in fresh air. So again, now at this point in time, we are encouraged to put off the AC, open the windows, have the rooms, your home well ventilated so that we can have in fresh air. It also helps if there are any virus, any bacteria, it helps them to get out rather than they being contained in the room. So this is something that we need to do. Again, we encourage or discouraging the use of cigarette smoking, whether it is marijuana or whether it is tobacco. Marijuana seems to be even more, the use of marijuana is even more than tobacco in some countries. So we are discouraging the use of those drugs because they deplete the immune system. And of course, we have the rest, which is, of course, you have the daily rest, you have the God allow the night for us to sleep, for us to rest, and the weekly rest and the annual rest, which is annual vacation. But even for this weekend, I saw some people mention that, oh, they had Sabbath rest because, of course, you were locked down. People who normally would go out on a Saturday could not go out on Saturday. So they were in and they said, well, they were Seventh-day Adventists for yesterday because, you know, they were in for the Sabbath. Okay, so rest is important. And this is one of the things that helps with even the patients, those persons who are tested positive. When they isolate them, they get rest, they get proper nutrition because they are being fed, they eat on time, and you know, so that helps the body to restore and build itself and also fight the infection. Then we have the trust in God. And I think this one is so important. Fear is one of the things that have been crippling people, and some people may die out of fear because fear can bring up your blood pressure. And as a result, you can develop a heart attack, you can develop stroke, and fear is crippling. So trust is the antidote for fear. So instead of being fearful as to what will happen, if we trust God, and there are so many scriptural verses that tells us, in fact, in 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7, tells us God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. When we are fearful and we are stressed, it causes the body to produce adrenaline, it produces cortisol, which itself helps to destroy or weaken the immune system and bring on other diseases, even diabetes. So that being said, I think we have those things. Besides that, there are some herbs that we know that are powerful, powerful antioxidants. So in Dominica, we have the lemongrass, right? We call it the fever grass, yes? And that you do not have to have fever to use it, but we use it for tea. And if you do a tea with ginger and lemongrass together, you feel the boost, you know, that it gives. So this is something that we encourage persons and, you know, to do, not to wait until you get the disease to do those things, but use it as part of your diet. You don't have to have milk all the time. You can have a herbal tea, and that in itself will be okay. So it is a matter of boosting our immune system, eating the right things, getting adequate rest, getting what, and also the social support. It's not part of the New Start, but it is part of celebration. It is part of, I think, Christian health as well. But social support is important. So although we are not able to meet together as we would normally do because of social distancing, and we say, you know, physical distancing, because we should maintain our social connections. And as this morning on Kyrie, I said, that we should call our relatives overseas, those of us who have relatives in New York, in UK. My sister is in UK, my brother is in California. I call them and find out how they are doing. And my relatives right here, my siblings here, call them, find out how they're doing. We have seniors who are at home, some people may be living alone. We can call them and talk with them, find out how they're doing, and if they need anything, we can arrange to provide those things that they are in need of. And that in itself will help us to not just focus on ourselves and think of what we are not able to do, but think of what we can do. Probably opportunities that every challenge also presents us with opportunities. And rather than look at the challenges, if we focus on the opportunities, then we can take hold of the opportunities and make the best use of the opportunities that we have. I
Yeah.
hope I've answered your question.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Am I on?
Yes, you are. Go right ahead.
Yes. Okay. Sister Prevost, one of the things I've been doing in my family is that I've made my own, let's say, shot for boosting the immune system. And this shot consists of, it's a combination of garlic, ginger, honey, and cayenne pepper. And I use that, you will drink maybe three or four tablespoons in the morning and at night before you go to bed. And I think you can sometimes feel that extra boost because you feel really good afterwards. And that's the best that I can do for my family in regards to boosting the immune system. I would go riding as well. Um, I have a gym in the yard. We'll do a little exercising and so forth. Um, play around with the soccer ball with the boy. You know, we do some exercising as well. But I want to say that for our audience out there, I mean, we are all human and we may have a certain element of fear. However, we're not to be overcome with fear. You know, COVID-19 is such a serious matter, and people all over the world are just dying like flies. And individuals will feel discomfort in that. But this is where we come in and trust in God and know that He hasn't given us a spirit of fear, as you said. But it's okay to feel a little afraid, but God is with us. Before I bring a question to Professor Welch, I would like to invite our audience to please send some questions by WhatsApp at the number 246-548-0773. Send some questions in so we can ask our panelists for you. Elder Welch, Professor Elder Welch. Some people may say that God will protect us because they have faith. They have so much faith. They believe God will protect us. And there's no need for social distancing. This doesn't only go for individuals who are non-Christian, non-believers, but some brethren in the church may feel that way as well. What advice would you give to individuals who think that they have so much faith that there's no need for social distancing because as far as they're concerned, nothing will happen to me?
Let me respond to that question by pointing to some biblical characters who we would consider as patriarchs. And I'm going to choose the first one. Be solid, very solid apostle. Many of us, I think, will want to be like Peter in many respects. But here was Peter when Christ was attempting to alert him as to what was going to happen to him. the coming crucifixion and refusing to accept that this is going to happen. In fact, he made it clear he would do anything. But Jesus then had to remind him that before the cock crow, he would deny him 3 times. This is Peter. We call the disciples being sent out, I think in the early chapters and Mark and Luke. Jesus sends out a number of disciples. Yes. Just give me a minute. Excuse me, I'm online. Sorry for that. That's a household domestic intervention. Yes, the disciples are sent out to go into the field, as it were, and to witness. And when they come back, they boast that even the devils were subject to them. They began to boast about their achievements. And Jesus had to reprimand them and said to them very clearly, the important thing that you should focus on is that your names are written in the book of life. That is what is important. In other words, it is not the time for us to boast about our superior faith. I've always been very cautious as one of the leaders in God's church of promoting this notion that because I have a certain amount of faith that I can do all things. There's another text which says that let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he falls. Now, having said that, I want to read something for you. This is what the minister, the Attorney General, said in Barbados concerning the current curfew. And he said, quote, "This is not a curfew in law and order. This is a period during which we are going to really and in a compulsory way restrict human activity, plain and simple." Now, I'm looking at that because a few minutes ago I said that we have to be very careful as Christians about transport into any discussion on COVID-19 some kind of pseudo religious formulation. We have to be extremely careful with that. At the same time, however, we can see in this COVID-19 episode, we can see some activity, some things that are happening, which should tell us that now is preparation time. In short, it is not the time to parade our superior knowledge. Yes, we keep the Sabbath. We respect our health system, and those are important aspects of our faith. But this is not the time to parade any superiority. This is really the time for us to recognize that this thing is testing us as it's testing the world. The vast majority of people, countries will have there's absolutely nothing that nobody's experienced this before. And I can tell you right now that what this is providing us with is an opportunity to commiserate others. Our sister Prevost made mention of contact with our relatives and friends, or loved ones, Sabbath school teachers. This is time for Sabbath school teachers to be calling Sabbath school class members. This is a time for all non-Christian friends and attempt as far as possible to reach out to them at this time, to let them know they're not alone. But above all things, we should never, ever, ever believe that we have a superior position. It is not us that is a superior person here. It is Jesus who is. And that's where I will leave that issue.
Okay. I just want to remind our audience that when you're sending your questions, please state your name, continue with the question, and then place a question mark. Obviously, we would like to invite more questions rather than comments, because comments would be longer and would not be the same way to pass it over to the panelists. So if you just ask some short questions, you will get the panelists to answer those questions to the best of their ability.
All right, so
We're getting some questions together now. And before I hand over to Mr. Benjamin, I just want to say that, I understand now from the medical practitioners that whether you think you have COVID or not, you should wear a mask. Across the world now, they're saying wear a mask because they said that you don't just have to cough or sneeze, but if you're laughing strong or speaking strong, the fumes which come from your mouth is aerosol, and you can also pass that on or catch it in that way. You could either pass it or catch it. So they're recommending that if you have access to face masks, wear those face masks. I will now hand over to Cliff. Go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, hi. So we have a couple of WhatsApp questions coming in. There's one here for Elder Welch, and the person says, "Good evening to the brother Welch. Do you think that God is feeling our pain in what is going on as the virus all over the world? He loved us. He just wants us to live and trust Him. What do you think?" So I'll repeat one more time. Do you think that God is feeling our pain in what is going on as the virus is all over the world? He loves us and He just wants us to live for and trust Him. Elder Welch.
Certainly, through the scriptures, there's what we call a recurrent decimal of faith that we can hold on to. The Bible says that we have a high priest who is touched with the feeling of our infirmities. We have a person, we have one who's experienced what experiencing. That is Jesus Christ, our Savior. And in that context, there's absolute no doubt in my mind that God commiserates with us. Now, this side of heaven, we find out why He is permitting it, because clearly nothing happens without His permission. And we have to accept that God is permitting this for whatever reason, but it doesn't at the same time suggest that he's oblivious. Doesn't suggest that he doesn't care about our feelings. He does love us, and that love is exemplified in what Jesus Christ came and did. So when we look at Jesus and we apply what He did to what we're going through now, we understand that COVID-19 is really an opportunity for us to draw closer to God, an opportunity for us to become to develop our faith more. I can share with you, my daughter has just recently gone through fairly major surgery. She had issued on her local newspaper a testimony was afflicted with breast cancer. And I must say to you that when we first got the news, like any other Christian, the first question that will come to our mind sometimes often is, why, Lord? Why? Why is this happening? But having asked the question, which God understands and knows that will come from us, having asked the question, next journey for me and my daughter was ready to say, but Lord, whatever you will, we will still trust you. And the evidence that we can trust is found in a number of encounters in the scriptures. We have the 3 Hebrew boys, you remember them quite well, who declare our God is able to save us. But if not, we are still not going to bow down. So in this time, God, you must believe that He loves us, and you must believe that He will keep us and sustain us. But if for any reason, any of us in our church should get this COVID and should even die, there is something that we must tell ourselves, that this is not the end of our existence. Because the Bible promises us that one day come, there will be no more crying, no sorrow, no pain. And we must keep that, it must be a perpetual faith point in our thinking. And if we do that, you're the one who asked the question. I just want to assure you and all our listeners that God is still in charge.
Okay. And this next question to Sister Prevost, I'll let you take this one. And the person asked, if someone that is in pain and can't move around to exercise, what advice would you give to them?
There are different types of exercise, and it depends on the cause of the pain. Sometimes the pain, depending on what the pain is, sometimes the pain can also be as a result of lack of exercise. So I remember I personally had pain in my shoulder, and when I was doing one of my studies, I was doing a lot of writing and not in the correct position, and I had a lot of pain. I actually went to the doctor, and he asked me to do an X-ray, wanted me to take some medication, which of course I did not take, and asked me to do an X-ray. When I got to the X-ray department, and they gave me a date, which was like 2 months later, to do the X-ray, I said, no, my shoulder will be healed before that. But fortunately, some folks came, a physiotherapist, and it was a physiotherapist or a therapist anyway, came in, and some volunteers we had coming in from the US, and she actually manipulated and did some exercise to my hand, and the pain went completely up till this time. So sometimes we may be experiencing pain, but if we do some exercise, that can help. According to the cause of the pain, again, there are some exercises that we may not be able to go to walk. But if you do exercise in your house, even just getting up and down from the chair, getting up and sitting back down, stretching the leg, raising the arms in the air, and doing some sort of exercise, do some swimming, on shore, just with your hand movements. Yes, you can loosen up the muscle, loosen up the joints, and then you will feel better eventually. So everybody can exercise. I know my mother was not able to walk, but she would stamp her feet on the ground, and every time she would use her hand and beat the side of the bed. And I always said, Mama is doing her exercise. Great.
All right. And so one more question before we move on. This person asked, can supplements play a role in boosting the immune system against COVID-19?
The question of supplements, the best way to boost your immune system is through the methods that I've mentioned to you earlier. There are some supplements that can be taken, but however, the best supplement is a proper diet. There are some supplements that are very, very high in certain vitamins and minerals, and sometimes they can cause even more harm than good, because if let's say you need 60 milligrams of vitamin C daily, any excess that you take really is passing out in your urine. And so you have vitamin C of 1,000 milligrams, that is 1,000% over what is required. Then that is really, really a waste. And if you take those supplements, but you do not practice the things that we've been talking about, you see, many times we may divert our attention from the things that we are supposed to be doing. you want to take supplements. It's just like with everything else. We're talking about diabetes, hypertension, and the things that we're supposed to do. You do want to eat everything, anything, don't exercise, you're obese, you don't try to lose weight or anything, but you want to have medication for blood pressure. So it is you're working against your own self. Okay, so the same with the COVID-19. Wash your hands, use respiratory etiquette, do those things, eat properly, get your rest, and those things. And I mean, what I would say, supplements is not absolutely necessary. If somebody is very ill and need recovery, during the recovery phase, they can have some B-complex, or they are really over exerted. And so, but for the regular person, the normal person, if you spend that money in buying the proper food to eat, and you get your exercise, you get your rest, that will suffice. And this is what you see. Many times we get diverted with so many different things, and we forget the things that we are supposed to be doing. So our focus should be not on all those other things. Let us focus on what we're supposed to be, what else we're supposed to be doing, and pray and trust God.
Okay, Nigel?
Yes, sir. Okay, there's a question which came from a member of the audience, but I'm not finding it at this time. Can you forward that question to me, Benjamin, please? Do you have it?
Yeah.
While you're looking for the question, I would
Yes.
also like to make mention on the mask. Yes, it is being recommended that we use masks, but we have to be careful not to purchase those masks that would be needed by the medical and health personnel and other personnel that are there on the front line. That is the N95 mask. So this is something that we have to be particular of. And I think that was could have been one of the reasons why they were saying not to use masks initially, because there was a shortage of masks. And then if you have a public buying all the masks and you don't have enough masks, then the people who actually need it may not have it. So this is something that we need to pay attention to. But yes, if you're going out in the public, you have to, those persons who are going out can use the masks.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, 1, 2.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Okay,
Nigel.
yes. Sister Prevost, I also understand from different sources that if you have a bandana, you can wear that bandana as well. Double it and wear it. People are also using their sewing machines and making masks with large kerchiefs and bandanas and so on and so forth. Because you've got to work with what you have, you know.
Yes.
It will still help. It will
Yes,
still help.
that is correct. But one of the things we have also to do in using the mask is how we really put them on, how we remove them, because then what is meant to protect you can also be a means of, infecting you. Because if the mask is contaminated, you do not take them off properly, you do not wash your hands again, then you are putting yourself at risk. So it can be protective, but it can also provide a false sense of security as well.
Okay.
Just before you go on, brother, yes, Ward, I just wanted to
Yes.
to thank Sister Prevost for her information, particularly her information as regards the things that we can do. I just wanted to make the point that, and I alluded to this earlier, that as Christians, we have to be very careful about what I may call imposing on the COVID-19 epidemic some peculiar and particular theological notions. I have noticed on a lot of our in recent days that there are a lot of persons who are chats, that's CHATS. There are a lot of our persons are forwarding to others all kinds of extracts and all kinds of videos and all kinds of things, some of which have absolutely nothing to do with the current pandemic. And we have to be extremely careful as Christians with that kind of approach. There's a lot in the scriptures that we haven't even looked at yet in for ourselves. And I would say to our people of this constant turning to videos and all kind of extracts from various pieces, even from the person who we respect in the church. Ellen G. White, as a Seventh-day Adventist, I believe and accept that she's inspired by God. At the same time, however, there are persons who will search when they see an event like this one. They will search for writing and extract and pick out of those writings things that they apply at this particular time. And then they use that as being thus saith the Lord. In our school lesson recently, we've been dealing with the whole question of sola scriptura or scriptura sola, that the Bible and the Bible is the basis of our doctrines. And while we respect and we believe and accept the gift that God has given to Sister White, the fact remains that ultimately all of our doctrines, all of our beliefs must be founded on the Bible and the Bible alone as the foundation of our doctrines. If we study the history of this church, we discover very quickly that there was no doctrine that this church has accepted that was given to this church by Ellen G. White. What she did is that she supported the doctrine. So when it came to the Sabbath, for example, she received a message from a man called Joseph Bates and others. So when she accepted the Sabbath truth, then she admonished persons, she had visions which dealt with that, but she didn't introduce it to the church. She's not the first person to have that vision and then or to know about the Sabbath. When it came to the question of the health message, at first when Joseph Bates again spoke to her about eating swine's flesh and other things, she didn't accept it at first time. What Seventh-day Adventist Church is that brothers and sisters study the Word of God. As they study the Word of God, she would sometimes have a vision which would confirm what they had already seen in the Word of God and would establish that the Word of God as a basis. She herself calls her contribution the lesser light that is leading us to study greater light. So I really want to say to our people at this time of COVID-19, now is not the time to branch off into some spurious theological explanation for what's going on. Rather, the time has come for us now to go into the scriptures. And yes, we use Ellen White, where she has valuable information on health and other things for understanding. But certainly, when I am out there speaking to my non-Adventist friends, and they have many of them, my major objective is to let them know from the Word of God, that there's some things that will happen. And that is where we have to go. I just want to encourage the saints of the church to stay close to the Word at this time.
Yes.
All right.
Forgot. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. With regards to sharing of those videos, there are many, and both on a spiritual level as well as on a COVID level, in terms of videos of people sending stuff, and I'm trying to let individuals know that really everything you get, you do not have to send. And if we can just stop all this sending and do what we're supposed to do. As I said earlier, the data is fluid. And so the data changes from day to day. Today you had 4 new cases. So you had 52 yesterday, you have 56 today, you have 6 recovered, you have 1 death. That was not yesterday. So every day, the numbers around the globe, around the world is changing. But what doesn't change is what we are supposed to be doing. Well, of course, we talk about the mask, wearing of mask now, and of course, you'll be updated as time goes on. But the hand washing and thing, because the way the virus is spread remains. The transmission, how it gets all around remains. So what we need to really focus on is doing what we are supposed to do. And then there is something that I said back then when we had chikungunya and we had those infections. Some people say, oh, this is a conspiracy, whatever it is. And now I would say to people, if you do not believe that the chikungunya is spread through the mosquito breeding in your backyard, you will not look for the breeding site and try to eradicate the mosquito because you think it is some conspiracy. And the same thing will go for COVID-19. If we think that that is it, and you have a lot of conspiracy theories going around, and we circulate those things, then it removes our responsibility because we are not the one responsible for spreading this. And if we do not see our responsibility in all of that, and we look at those other things, we'll not do the things that we supposed to do. And eventually we will get caught, unwittingly, because we did not do what we were supposed to do. So I am really, really appealing to all those who are listening to us this evening that we take this seriously. Yes, it is an opportunity to share the love of Jesus. It's an opportunity to spread the gospel, but let us do what we have to. Let us cooperate with the authorities. They are doing what they can do, but what we can do, they cannot do for us what we are supposed to be doing. So the social distancing, and this is why we have the lockdown again, the hand washing and all those things. And if we keep focusing on that, then at one point it will click. When we had a stakeholders consultation a week before we had our first case here in Dominica. And I said, it takes 21 days to develop a habit. And so while we do not yet have cases, if we practice those things and we get 21 days to do it, to practice, then by the time we get cases, we would already have the habit ingrained in us. And if we see that, then by now the hand washing and the coughing and in the tissue and in the elbow folds and those things should be part of us, and we would know that this is one of the things that we can do. We also had opportunities before to use Zoom, to use Skype, to use online streaming services. And of course, God gave us the opportunity to practice and to learn. Now we are able to bring this into actuality and have church via Zoom, have church online, and still be able to fellowship in that sort of fashion, not meeting in person. So I think we need to, as I said earlier, to really look for the opportunities, embrace the opportunities rather than focus on things that will not actually help us to overcome the situation as it is at this time.
Okay, okay. At this time, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, go
yes,
right
Hear
ahead.
yes.
you.
Yes, okay. At this time, I want to bring our awareness to the fact that we will be closing broadcast at 6:30. 6:30, we will bring the broadcast to an closure, okay? Before we do that, I would like to ask Elder Welch a question which is coming from someone from our audience. This individual is concerned. Now, all of us in Barbados are focused on April 14th, when the curfew will be lifted. This individual is concerned if the curfew extends and drags on for months, let's say months, what advice would you give to us in Barbados as it relates to how we must handle it? Because I'm thinking some individuals may not have enough groceries to last for months. Some individuals probably got groceries that would only take them to April 14th. And hence, there's a possibility that panic may set in, fear may increase. What would you say to us who are listening right now if that comes about, that we have to drag on for a few months with the lockdown?
I think. Thank you very much for that question. I think that there are many of us across this region who really do not understand how serious COVID-19 is as a social threat, quite apart from its devastation as a disease. I have been speaking with my brother, who is top workers in Switzerland, and they are shut down right now as well. I was discussing with him the Barbados population and its employment profile. And in discussing that with him, we worked out that probably Barbados has a population of between 270 and 280,000. The last census, I think, is about 270 something thousand. And of that population, about another, I say about a little more than half of that population, probably about 145,000 or so, 150,000, maybe the employed population. And of that number, we estimated in our discussion about of that working population will not have a job come the 14th or 15th. And that will include some Seminary Adventists and other fellow Christians. When you think of it, we depend on tourism. So the taxi sector, transportation sector is hit. And until our source markets, that is the market in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in the US, etc., those markets, you're not going to get tourists in the numbers that you had before. So we can expect that there's going to be a fallout in terms of employment for the transportation sector. The hotel sector is already damaged, and in some cases, we might all that some of those hotels will not be able to recover after this event, because sometime before we get the tourists come back in great numbers. In addition to that sector, that's the hotel sector, tied to that is the hospitality sector. I'm thinking of the restaurants and the other businesses that sell all kinds of things. Some of them will not again survive this. So that after this initial period, although the government has said that it's going to boost unemployment benefits, there's a limit how far you can go with that. Actually, given the fact that that Barbados, like some other Caribbean countries, has been in an arrangement with the IMF and has been heavily dependent on IMF funding to help us out of our current predicament. I said all of that to say that we must not be surprised when one of the things that has resulted is that many of our people will be in great need. I expect that in some places, in some of our private schools, and I'm not going to say too much about that they can continue to pay your teachers. That is going to be an issue. This is where our Christianity comes into focus, because we're going to have to assist our brothers and sisters we're going to have to identify persons in our churches who may need that additional support, who may need that weekly basket. If you have the resources and you buy some items for yourself, you may have to consider, let me put a little bit aside for this other family. That's the way how we're going to have to have, but let us recognize that even though we may do that, we must not underestimate the very serious predicament that many of our people will be facing come April 14th, April 15th. And I tell you, I trust God to work through this with us. But humanly speaking, expect that April 15th or 14th or anything soon, that this thing is going to be over. In fact, when I look at the USA, when I look at Italy, I mean, they're talking about when in Italy you have 800 plus people dying in one and they're reaching the peak. You know what? 800 people dying in one day. I mean, so it's going to be a while, a long time. I really honestly don't see us getting through this before probably into July, maybe into August. One thing that it has affected, and I must say to you, that I was looking forward to General Conference this year, and, and I had every plan to go, but but that's it. I mean, that's the reality. And although they have shifted General to next year, I at this point we cannot even confirm that by this time by next year everything is going to be back to normal.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay, I understand. Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes.
Yes, okay, I understand the perspective that brother
Well,
Welch has given here. But on a slightly different opposite note, we know that this is difficult, and of course there are serious economic fallout from this. However, one of the ways I look at it, because sometimes when you listen to that kind of thing, it really puts doom and gloom on the whole picture. But there is a statement that I've learned, I've used it for myself, is that you expect the best, prepare for the worst, and you brace for whatever comes. Okay? So, expecting the best, if we do what we are supposed to do and everybody do what they're supposed to do, we can see. Because for me, I am hopeful. In Dominica, I mean, yes, we have less cases, but I am hopeful based on the aggressive nature that they're tackling this thing in doing the contact tracing and shutting down the borders, patrolling the beaches so that people do not come in illegally via back door, and the quarantine of the people, the isolation of the cases, the tracing of the contacts, and the management of those positive cases. I can see we can get over this. It may not be in a month's time, it may not be in 2 weeks, but at least if we adhere to the guidelines now, it will help us in moving forward. Whereas if we disregard the guidelines and if we start getting panicky and fearful, we might die from heart attack and stroke and not from COVID-19. So this is something that we have to take in stride. We continue to pray and ask God to give us courage to go through this. In the meantime, prepare for the worst. Do some, plant something in your backyard. Have something, grow some of your own food, that have a tree, whatever. I mean, it's late to plant a tree now to expect it to bear. But if you plant some vegetables and some things, you can have short crops, you can have food in the not too distant future. And this is something that we have to do. If each family can do some of that, it will help to cushion a little bit the difficulty that we may encounter in the long run. But I would like us to think of this in a more positive light and really, yes, expect the worst. Yes, if the worst comes, what are we going to do? And this is where every family should have a family plan as to what they will do in the event of whatever, in the event of being laid off, in the event of that, what are we going to do? What can we do to survive? How will we make it? So a plan, but don't go worrying and panic, because this is what brings a lot of the fear and the panic. What if, and what if this, and what if that, and if that doesn't happen? And while we are thinking of that, we are forgetting what we are supposed to be doing to prevent the what ifs, So I just want to leave us with this, that this too shall pass. The worst can also happen, and as we get closer to the coming of Christ, we'll expect things will happen, and of course, the Spirit of prophecy tells us they will happen in quick succession. So we should be aware of those things, and we should be prepared physically ourselves, prepared spiritually, prepare our families, prepare our home, our communities, and as you rightly said, prepare to help others. And we should be positioned and in a way to assist those who maybe are less fortunate than us, so that it can help to cushion the effects of the economic fallout that this thing is likely to have, even as it is right now. So I am happy for the opportunity, to have had this discussion this afternoon. And I really trust that, we can take these things seriously. And I want to make an appeal to the young people, those who think that, this thing, it is boring being inside, and what there are creative things that can be done. People are now working from home. And if you think about it, you spend less if you work when you work from home. The amount of gas you have to put in a petrol, petrol you have to put in a vehicle to go out and to do all those. Think about the savings that you are accruing right now as a result of not having to go out there every day and face that traffic and all of that. So think of the positive, and if we really think positively, it will help us to produce more endorphins as opposed to cortisol and adrenaline when we think negative, and we focus on all the bad things that are going to happen and that can happen. Yes, but if we think positively and know that God will make a way where there seems to be no way, because he has promised never to leave us nor forsake us.
Thank you very much for that reminder, sister. I know that I did paint the negative side of the coin, and I'm really very happy that you provided the counterbalance and
Thank you.
to that. I'm very appreciative of that. At the same time, however, I just thought that that people need to understand how serious the matter was.
Serious it is.
And,
Yes, yes.
and it is in that context that I think we might then be able to do the planning that you're talking about,
Yes.
and
Yes.
planning to help our families. And thank you for reminding me that my car had gas, and it's still on full, because I haven't used my car. So let me thank God I have gas in my car that I don't have to look for now. And incidentally, have done something I haven't done for years. When I went to the supermarket recently, I bought some flour and I bought some yeast, because
Yes.
I figured that if I can't get bread from the supermarket, I can bake my own bread. I used to do that
Amen.
before. So all this.
Amen. Amen. And there's one more point. There's one more point I would like to make here, because from what I understand, I know it is here in Dominica, and I think it is Barbados as well, that while the supermarkets are closed, the shops in the community are to be opened. Am I correct?
Yes, the community shops, so to speak, will remain open, so that they can service the
community.
Correct.
Exactly. So therefore, we should, if we are short of something, we don't have to go crowding the supermarket. Use it. If everybody use the community shops, then the money will circulate in the community itself, and I mean that will be, you know, positive and will prevent you. Of course, you still save gas on having to go to the supermarket, so there will be a rippling positive effect in that way. So people should not starve because the shops, you know, will refill and so on. So if you do not have anybody who do not have the capacity to buy the bulk stuff, then you will still be catered for by the community shops.
Yeah, but so many questions and comments and so much information to deliver in such short space of time. It's amazing how much we can learn by interacting. But I want to take this opportunity to share a message from our president of the East Caribbean Conference, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up on this discussion for today. So welcome back, and you've been with us so far and so patient. We've been discussing with Sister Priscilla Prevost from the health coordinator for the East Caribbean Conference, and also Professor Pedro Welch, retired professor of the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, here in Barbados. Also with us is Brother Nigel Ward from the Breath of Life Seventh-day Adventist Church. As we boils down and we come to an end of this wonderful, wonderful program, there's so much information to share, so little time. I want to give the panelists an opportunity at this time to close and share any relevant information with you guys. So we're gonna go right to it. Let's start with Sister Prevost. Your closing remarks?
Well, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel this afternoon and to share information with your listening audience. And I really commend you, Nigel and Clifford, for this wonderful initiative. And it's initiatives like this that we need at this time to help to get the message out, because one of the things that that is necessary is continuous education of the public with regards to what is happening and what needs to be done. And again, I just want to encourage the members to take all the necessary precautions and guidelines that have been given, and of course to keep trusting God and pray. Let us remember the nurses and the frontline workers that are taking care of the patients who are ill. And as they say in their various posts, that we can help them to stay out there for us by we staying inside. So I think if we follow that guideline, that advice, we stay inside and we can find several things, useful things to do, things we did not have the opportunity to do before. Let us use this opportunity to do those things as we stay, so that we can flatten that curve, we can contain and prevent further spread of the coronavirus. I think some people taking it as a joke, some people make their name corona. No, those things should not be. Let us take this seriously and do what we have to do, and let God do what He is able and capable of doing. May God bless all our listeners tonight and grant us a peaceful, quiet rest. Let us rest in Jesus, knowing that He is still in control. He still has the whole world in His hands. Thank you.
Yeah, while during our break, you were sharing some information as it regards to the healthy lifestyle living and what the conference is encouraging us to do at this point. Can you repeat that information to the audience so that they can be aware and have the necessary contact numbers should they have any questions or comments?
Okay, yes, so the Health Ministry Department, we have prepared a video that targets the young people, done by the Youth Director, Pastor Denny, and Dr. Marcia Cambridge Maxwell. And that was out last weekend, but it will also be out this weekend for those who had not seen it. It's very, very good. And also we, Brother Julian Silly, have prepared some infographics for us relating to the New Start. It's the same information that we've heard before, but putting it in a way that we can remember. And it will be out every week, every day, sorry, for the rest of this week. It started yesterday and continues for the rest of the week. So if you go to 767 245 6373, 767 245 6373, my WhatsApp status, you will see these posted. And there are other persons who will post them as well. So if you see those, then you can send it out to all your contacts, or you can put it on your WhatsApp status so that person who view your status can see those. I think I have seen about 67 views every day for those that I have posted. So let us do that. If several of us do that, then we can carry that message to many, many, many people. Is remember, the data changes, but the guidelines and principles remain the same. God bless.
All right, thank you very much, Sister Prevost. It's always a pleasure to share and interact with her, with members from our neighboring country. As you continue throughout tonight, I do wish you well rest, and thank you very much for taking the time out to participate. Professor Welch, we're going to give you this opportunity now to give any final remarks. The floor is all yours.
I am not a soloist, but I've chosen remarks of the hymn 254, The Great Physician Now Is Near. And I'm just going to sing that first verse. The great physician now is near, the sympathizing Jesus. He speaks the drooping chair. Oh, hear the voice of Jesus. Sweetest note in seraph's song, sweetest name on mortal tongue, sweetest carol ever sung. Jesus played, Jesus. Have a blessed evening.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, Professor Welch. It's again a privilege to have you with us and to share that your knowledge and your wealth of knowledge with us. So, Nigel, we've had a wonderful session so far. It's sad that it has to come to an end, but we'll be back after this next item, and then we'll wrap up. So stick around, guys. Don't go anywhere. We've had a wonderful session. What's your take on it?
Okay, man, it's been great. We had 92 participants. That's wonderful for first time, and for individuals who are not trained in this area. That's very, 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 very good for us. Of course, we have to come back. We have to decide among ourselves when we will return again.
Yeah, so you were saying, Nigel?
Yes. Okay. It's important that individuals from the district, from the various churches, would reach out to the community, reach out to the brethren, Individuals are trapped in their homes and there's nothing to do. You can't go and have physical Sunday night church, Wednesday night church. Even for our other brothers and sisters in the Sunday churches, they're trapped as well. And we just want to say that God is still on the throne. And this is a time where we get to reflect, time where we get to strengthen our faith. We get to spend some quiet time with the Lord, with His Word. We get the opportunity to give God the chance to get those ravens ready with crumbs of bread to bring for us. Those of us who feel stranded under a tree, think that we are alone. I would like us to know that we are not alone. God will not forsake us. It's time for us to just focus and listen to that still voice. I also want to thank our lovely audience, our lovely guests for logging on and participating, because without them, we wouldn't have a program. I'm very happy that, Cliff and myself, we sat down and we thought about this and we said, let's do this. It was a last minute decision, decided, and we worked all yesterday in the night. We worked this morning, try to get this program on the road so we can touch base with our brethren and bring the brethren together in one forum, virtual church service. Well, it wasn't really a church service, but
Nice panel discussion that we were able to, ask some of those questions that will be on most people's minds. What was your personal input as it relates to the whole COVID-19 situation and all that was said, and we gave the doctor and the sister the opportunity to share from their perspective and to share their information and also information that was provided from their government. But you, what's your take on the whole thing?
okay. First, let me say, I know we played the video clip from the president a while ago. That video clip was done initially before the lockdown. And the number of cases he would have mentioned was back at that time. But as of today, we heard that we are up to 56 cases now. So the cases continue to climb. COVID-19 is a serious virus, and I would encourage individuals to take it very serious. Listen to the various advice and guidelines from government agencies. Listen to guidelines from the church, from a church leader, and do the best that you can to keep yourself safe. Do the very best that you can to keep yourself safe. Prayer, do your devotions, spend quiet time. You have technology, touch base with your friends and families. Try not to be too fearful. Let's don't take chances to break the curfew. As Christians, we abide by the laws of the state as long as they don't conflict with the laws of God. So we will be cooperative with the state. And I will be praying for you. As a matter of fact, I'll have a word of prayer when we start to close off. So Cliff,
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing this together with you, and I want to wish you and your family safety as well.
Yeah.
And we will be back. We will be back
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll soon announce the next edition of Straight Talk 2020 with new panelists so that we can, as we, should I use the term combat COVID with some information that, I won't use the term combat, but at least we'll be able to spread the information and also keep the interaction between amongst the Christian community, but not only the Christian community, but in general altogether, because we can't leave home and go and socialize. So what's the next best thing? We do it online. For years, I've heard people complaining that they're not so much socializing physically outside. Everybody's cooped up, locked up in their home. Everybody's on a gadget. Everybody is WhatsApp calling, Skype calling, all these different things. And look, it actually is what we are using as a means of communication vitally right now because we need it. Not saying that going outside is a bad thing, but in this particular instance, you need to stay inside. And we need to utilize the technology that we have available in order for us to reach out to our families and our friends. And, yeah, this is and it is, to me personally, I believe this would give us an opportunity to prepare or kind of get focus as to how serious Revelation is and get into end times and curfews and different rules and laws is that going to be released to hinder spiritual gathering or religious meetings and stuff like that. But look, we will find a way. There's always a way around, and there's always a way to get the word of God and to get the gospel out. Our Father, who art in heaven, we want to give you thanks and praise for allowing us the opportunity to be able to come together and be able to deliver and be able to continue to share a word of encouragement to our brothers and sisters in faith. We thank you very much for a program that was executed well, and we pray that as we continue to work towards finding ways to interact and to spread the gospel, we pray and ask that you will continue to be with us. Please be with us as we continue throughout this night. In Jesus' name, amen. So, let's see.